Welcome to Health News and Views, a podcast dedicated to bringing some clarity to the health disparities in the Black and Brown communities. If you believe there's a connection between food, sickness, and health, then you're in the right place. Let's begin the process of unraveling the truth. And now your host, Lynn Pete.
Greetings and welcome back to another episode of Health News and Views, Food, the Final Frontier, where we explore the connection between food, lifestyle, and chronic disease, especially in the communities that carry the heaviest burden. This episode is part 3 of Okay, Now It's Personal. In the previous episodes, we looked at high blood pressure, obesity, and overweight, and the impact that they're having on the community. Well, today's question is simple but powerful. Diabetes, then and now. And why are the numbers still rising? Inherited or introduced? That's the question. We are rethinking the diabetes conversation. But first, our disclaimer is that the subject matter provided in this podcast or any of our other published documents is for informational purposes only. Food, the Final Frontier, and our partner, Health News and Views. We do not attempt to treat, diagnose, or cure any disease or condition. Always check with your healthcare provider before making any lifestyle, dietary, or prescription drug changes. And now, let's take a retrospective look back. Now, maybe you can't go back 50 years, but certainly the data can. So 50 years ago, diabetes did exist, but not at the levels that we see today. Almost every family knows someone battling with type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes or obesity or high blood pressure, fatty liver disease, kidney disease, or neuropathy, or even vision loss. And increasingly, children and teenagers are being diagnosed too. So we have to ask, did our genes suddenly change in one generation, or did something else change? Because the numbers continue to climb across nearly every ethnic group in America. But the impact always seems to hit the Black and Brown communities especially hard. Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, and even some Asian populations continue to experience disproportionately high diabetes rates, complications, amputations, kidney disease, and earlier diagnosis among many of these groups. But this is no longer their issue. This is now an American issue. And today, we're talking about what diabetes is, why the numbers are rising, and what the heck changed over 50 years, and what can we begin doing right now to protect ourselves and our families. Well, let's take a look at then versus now. We're going to travel back roughly, as I said, 50 years. So in the 60s and 70s, we have to consider this. Families cooked more meals at home. You could miss dinner if you got there after 6 o'clock because the kitchen was closed by 8. Okay, so portions were generally smaller. Fast food was occasional. Sugary drinks were less common. People walked more. Children played more outside. And ultra-processed food had not yet completely taken over our grocery stores. Well, yeah, people still became ill and diabetes did exist, but not at today's staggering levels. Now compare that to today's environment. Many people consume sugary drinks almost daily with their meals. Highly processed corn and soy snacks are available almost at every meal. Things like chips and Doritos and things like that. Fast food, not occasionally, but it's several times a week people are consuming fast food. It's just easier, it's quicker, and oftentimes cheaper than buying it in the supermarket. And we talked before about oversized portions and refined carbohydrates at nearly every meal, like having pancakes and home fries at the same meal. Really? Do you need both? Really? A daily diet of foods designed for convenience rather than nourishment is what we have now. Yes, people are sleeping less, sitting more, working longer hours, and stressed constantly, and eating on the run. And that's because food is available 24 hours a day. Okay. And in many communities, especially lower income communities, unhealthy foods are cheaper, easier to access 24 hours a day, and heavily marketed. So again, we ask, what changed? Oh, it's genetic. Let's now address the elephant in the room for many people. They say, diabetes runs in my family. And there is some truth to that statement. However, researchers have identified genetic factors that may increase susceptibility to diabetes, but there's no single diabetic gene that guarantees that someone will develop the disease. The genes alone cannot explain why diabetes rates exploded over just a few decades. Genes don't change that quickly, but environments do, and food systems do, and lifestyles do. And maybe what families are inheriting is not simply DNA, but also eating patterns, stress patterns, cooking habits or no cooking habits to be precise, processed foods, grab and go foods, add inactivity to the equation, and generations of nutritional misinformation. And that changes the conversation. Just makes sense. Because if lifestyle contributed to the problem, then doesn't it make sense that lifestyle can also become part of the solution? Well, let's take a look at our food environment, and let's talk honestly about the food. Many foods marketed today barely resemble real food anymore. Walk through the grocery store, they do have sections. I heard this from another naturopath out there. He said they have sections in the store called healthy food section or healthy alternative section. Well, if they have a section called healthy, what do you call the rest of the store? Anyway, I digress. But what you do have when you walk through the store, you have brightly colored cereals and sugary yogurts and frozen dinners and snack cakes and chips and energy drinks. Guess you do need energy after walking and buying all of that stuff. But anyway, sweetened coffees and processed meats and foods with ingredient labels longer than your science projects. But some experts believe ultra-processed foods are one of the biggest contributors to the chronic disease in the modern society. And by the way, this information is coming from credible sources. And these foods are often high in sugar, refined starch, high in sodium, low in fiber, and designed to keep people eating. And many of the products are aggressively marketed in Black and brown communities. And this is not about blame. This is about awareness, because most people were never taught how these foods affect insulin or inflammation or fat storage or blood sugar. And why am I craving this stuff anyway? And what it's going to do to my long-term health? And why are our children? Perhaps the most breathtaking change that's being seen is diabetes in younger people. Well, children, teenagers, young adults. 50 years ago, type 2 diabetes was largely considered an adult disease. But today, doctors are seeing insulin resistance and pre-diabetes in children. And why? Well, experts, again, go back to the ultra-processed foods, the sugary beverages, and the inactivity. That brings on the obesity and the sleep disruption and stress and constant exposure to high-calorie and low-nutrient foods. Many of our parents are overwhelmed themselves. Families are busy, food is expensive, time is limited, and this is not about judging parents. This is about recognizing that many families are trying to survive inside a food environment that works against our health. All right, so what can we do? Well, here's the good news. The body has an incredible ability to respond to positive changes. Remember, the body is self-healing and self-regulating. So small changes matter. Walking matters. Water matters. Sleep matters. Cooking more at home matters. Reading labels, that matters too. And reducing sugary drinks matter. Let's add some, and you hear this almost every podcast, don't you? Let's add some vegetables, beans, fiber, healthy proteins, healthy fats, and whole foods. It could make a tremendous difference, not overnight, but steadily. And remember this, that every meal is information for the body. And the question is, what message are we sending? Today, we asked the question, what changed? And maybe the answer is the food changed, the lifestyle changed, the stress levels changed, movement has changed, and the way we live has changed. And while diabetes affects all groups in America, the burden continues to weigh heavily in the Black and brown communities. But knowledge is power, and this conversation is not about shame or blame and not about perfection. It's about awareness, choices, prevention. Because if something changed to help create this crisis, then it just makes sense that maybe something can change to help reverse it. Well, this concludes the series on Now It's Personal, but it opens the door to changes we all must take part in making our food our final frontier. And we have corrected and mastered difficult situations before. And this is one that our very being depends on. So if the information resonates with you, be a blessing to someone and pass it on. And make today a powerful day. And remember, we are the change we seek. Let's start where we are. It doesn't matter how small, as long as we are consistent. I'd like you to know that the information that was provided in this podcast came from a number of sources, such as the diabetes and chronic disease information came from the Center for Disease Control, American Diabetes Association, the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Disease, also from the U.S. Department of Human Services, Office of Minority Health, and the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, the Mayo Clinic, and the Cleveland Clinic. Also, the World Health Organization, Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Today's information was compiled using the data and educational resources from these organizations. Health News and Views, we believe informed people make better decisions, and that's why our podcasts are supported by documented research and public health data, not just conversation. Again, make it a powerful day. Peace.